Hi everyone, welcome back. We are here for another balcony chat once more. This time around, we're in the woods. We're no longer at the beach, unfortunately, but we're still enjoying nature nonetheless. Before I get started, for all of you who've been telling me, Clarisse, get a mic, noise cancellation, all of that stuff, I know, I heard you, and this time around, we do have a mic, so I hope that the audio is going to be of much better quality and a lot more enjoyable. However, I am enjoying the sounds of nature nonetheless. Um, Thanks to those of you who did say you enjoyed the beach sounds and the wind and all of those things, but I did hear you guys, the ones who didn't enjoy it. Um, I'm amidst birds, so that's the sound we're going to be hearing if the mic picks up any of that. Anyway, we're here for something more than me rambling on about a mic. So today I want to talk about um, how long should you wait for the one? The one meaning the ideal person, the person that we all dream of, be it a man or a woman, whatever side of the aisle you're on, whatever you're looking for. We all have this notion of there being a one for us, right? So we have this sense that um, as human beings, we have one person out there who is our soulmate, one person who has been just created for us, one person whom we're meant to be with. And we sort of carry ourselves through life on this journey, hoping that we will find that person, we will find that one, that person who is meant for us. And this is an ideal that we I don't know where it really came from, but I do believe that it is a highly romanticized version of relationships and of couplehood that we have all largely bought into. And I'm not necessarily sure that there is the one. So I'm going to approach this in about three steps. First, I want us to really delve into the notion of the one. Secondly, I want us to consider how we can find our one or a one. And thirdly, I want to talk about how long we should actually spend time waiting for the one or the so called one. So, first and foremost, is there a one or the one? I don't necessarily believe so. I think that, and this is through my own lived experience, and I think what I've also observed from other people, and what I've also had the good fortune of learning from other people through conversations, and just observing other people's life experiences. I believe that there are a good number of people that we could potentially do life with, right? And I think you see that when you go through the dating phase and you meet different people, you see attributes in different people that you like, you see attributes that you don't like. But one thing is certain, it is the fact that you can't have everything in one package. However, just based on my own connections that I've had with people, my ability to see things in people that I feel like, oh, I would really love this, or like this is the right thing for me, or etc. etc. I find, and this is even while being in a relationship, and I feel that it's important to acknowledge that even while being in a relationship, in a fulfilling relationship, in a relationship that you've dreamt of, it doesn't take away the fact that there's still the potential to encounter other human beings that you potentially feel a connection towards, or that you could see them being in that place in your life. That's not to say you will act on it, but it's to recognize the fact that in as much as we have this concept or this notion that there is one person who's made for us, and our almost duty is to find them, and our dream is to find them, our aspiration is to find them, there are quite a good number of people that you could potentially make the one in your life. And I think that ultimately it boils down to choice, right? We all have to ultimately make choices in our lives as to who we're going to allow to enter into that particular space in our lives and who we want to share life with. For each individual, that's obviously based on a whole set of criteria, a whole, list some people have of what they want, what they don't want, must-haves, areas they can compromise in, areas in which they can't compromise. So there's all of that which comprises how we go into this marketplace, per se, of finding our person. But I think that because the I am sort of hinging this conversation on the amount of time it takes to find the one, right? The question being, how long should we take to find the one? I think it's really important that from the outset we recognize that there isn't just one human being out there who you could potentially be with. There's a good number. And so my approach, my thought on this is very pragmatic, in as much as I would like to romanticize that there's just this amazing man out there who's going to, lift heaven and earth for me, who's going to pour millions into my bank account, who's going to rub my feet to bed every day, who's going to give me very nice massages, hot stone massages every day, who is going to rub my scalp, who is going to do my hair, who is going to do everything for me. And that's maybe from the perspective of a woman looking for a man that is the one, who is going to pour into me, who is going to, sing me sweet nothings every day, or sweet somethings, or whatever. Um, that is just an ideal that is impossible to accomplish, to attain. It is possible to find someone with whom you can have a healthy, a loving relationship with. But I think that ultimately what it comes down to is choice. And it is about two people who make a decision to love each other and to be with each other and to do life with each other, irrespective of their differences, irrespective of um, the ways in which um, they are differently shaped. The question then becomes, how do you find this person whom you can actually do life with? Um, how do we move from a space of searching to finding to choosing and to being with? I think the first step in this is we have to strip ourselves of fantasy. And I say this because, to be very honest, as I alluded to when I was describing this perfect man, so to speak, I don't know whether it is this age of social media. I don't know whether it is the age of dating apps. I don't know whether it is romance novels. I don't know what it is, but I find that people today are spending an inordinate amount of time looking for partners as though they were trying to find a needle in a haystack. And this is on both ends. This is women trying to find men. This is men trying to find women. It seems that there are two problems. One, this very idealistic notion of who the one is. For some men, they're dreaming of things that don't exist. Some men want a woman that does 50-50 but is submissive. I don't know where you're going to find that. I don't know where you're going to find that because, number one, if you want a woman to be splitting things with you, the power dynamic will certainly be very different. Submission, I don't know where it's going to come from. You guys, you'll find that wherever you find it. But there are situations like that. People who want things that are incongruent, 50-50 and submission. There are women who want extremely wealthy men, but men who have time for them. To be honest, if you are married to a Dangote or a Bill Gates, yes, your account is going to be full. Yes, it's going to be replenished every second. But where is this man going to find time to spend with you? Those are real things to grapple with. Then there's what we see on social media, such as I alluded to, the man who brings you breakfast in bed every day, the man who somehow knows how to do your hair, the man who is a poet, the man who is a this, the man who is a that. All of these things that, yes, you might experience that every once in a while, but that cannot be daily reality. It's just not daily reality. Okay, speaking as someone who has been with men, and yes, you're going to receive some romantic things here and there, but that is not daily life. However, when we go on Instagram, when we go on the other places that I really don't go on, TikTok, wherever else people get these ideas and ideals of who it is that they think they're looking for, we're sold dreams that are not real. So I think that the first step is stripping ourselves of all of these conjectured, you know, images and ideas of who it is that we're looking for, and bringing ourselves to reality and asking ourselves what we actually want in this life, what we want out of this life, especially within the department of a relationship, what we're willing to pour into it, what we're willing to also sacrifice, how we're willing to adapt ourselves to our partners, what we're willing to compromise. There's a whole slew of questions that one needs to ask oneself before pursuing a person, pursuing a relationship. Because ultimately, when you do get with someone, there's going to be adjustments, there's going to be friction, hopefully positive friction, because they say iron sharpens iron. But it's not just going to be two people just find each other, get together, and they just live happily ever after, you know, Romeo and Juliet, without the you know, the bad parts of Romeo and Juliet, the, you know, again, romantic notion of happily ever after. We've seen, because we all have pop culture as a reference, and these are the things that we see. We've seen over the years, celebrities, right? Those are human beings. And so we can refer to them when we're having conversations like this. They're not creatures of another planet. They're human beings just like us, except for they have a particular social status, and we get to see their lives, their real lives play out publicly. And so it gives us really good examples from which to draw from. We've seen celebrities, such as, I remember back in the day, Tom Cruise, when Tom Cruise went on the Oprah Winfrey show at that time when he was super in love with Katie Holmes. His love, you know, his feeling of having found his perfect match was just to a degree and a magnitude that he literally jumped on Oprah's couch, right? That is how excited it was. That is how much he felt that that was his one, the person made for him. We've seen, you know, once upon a time, we used to believe that, you know, Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith were a perfect couple, you know, power couple, perfect couple. We've also believed that about, you know, Michelle and Barack Obama. You know, thankfully, Michelle has come to say, hey, it's not like that. You know, let's put some reality into this thing. This thing is not as easy as it seems. It's not as perfect as it seems. You guys need to take a dose of medicine, take some salt, and reset on what you think about relationships, especially relationships of this nature, power couples, so to speak, right? So that's been a good dose of reality from Michelle Obama. But we have all of these examples, these public examples of figures who had seemingly perfect relationships, had seemingly found the one, had seemingly, you know, met their match, their soulmate. And then we've seen the relationship either disintegrate or in the process of disintegrating. Whether or not it fully disintegrates is ultimately left to the two people. Not to also mention Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, that whole saga there, right? Once upon a time, so beautiful, so wealthy, so all of these things, um again, perfect, when perfect, so to say, went on to have beautiful children. What happened, we don't know. We don't know what happened, but I think what all of this shows us is that in as much as we romanticize and we idealize relationships, we idealize people, we idealize the notion of finding the one, even after finding that so-called one, um there's the reality that sets in, which brings me back to the fact that there isn't just a one. Relationships, romantic relationships, being a couple, for me, is a thing of choice. It's about deliberate choice. Um, Being with a person and sustaining the relationship and making the relationship whatever it is that you dream it to be or you want it to be, It's about two people who are imperfect. Like, we are always going to be imperfect, even at the age of 95, 105. If we live to the, ages of the Abrahams, the 200s, or the whatevers, we will always be imperfect. It's about two imperfect people who deliberately choose to be with each other. And in order to be with each other, choose to do the work and to continue doing the work within themselves and across themselves that is necessary for them to maintain a healthy environment, a loving environment, whatever sort of environment it is that you aspire to between the two people. Because you're never going to meet a person that is perfect. And even if you meet someone that you believe to be perfect, the walls will start to crack. The rocks will start to trickle down. Things will start to crumble. And so the question is, will you ultimately then evacuate that and go finding another person? Or what are the measures that you can take? What are the deliberate choices that you can make even before venturing into finding the one, to ensure that that person that you choose and that person who is choosing you can build something that is sustainable? And for me, I think it is reorienting ourselves to not believe that there is just one person and there's just one sort of human being with whom you can build a perfect life. It is actually saying that I recognize that there are all of these defects within me. I recognize that there are potentially other defects within this other person, but I see in this person XYZ that I feel can be enriching to me, that I feel I can learn from, that I feel can be fulfilling. I also see their imperfections. I see where they might be lacking, and they see the same in me. And because of the fact that whether it is attraction or it's love or it's whatever that pulled you guys together, you therefore make a choice that you're going to do life with this person. And you both do that knowing and intentionally choosing to continuously do the work, to pour into yourselves, to develop yourselves so that you can be the best versions of yourselves for each other, such that you can actually do life with that person and that person becomes your one. But to again sort of double down on what I'm saying, what I'm saying is that if you don't go into a relationship with this mindset and with this pragmatic frame of mind, but you rather go in pursuit of a relationship with the notion that, again, there's some factory assembled person that is going to be your soulmate, and because they are your soulmate, life is going to be great with that person. It's going to be perfect. The relationship will just work itself out. There's not going to be anything you really need to do. Then I think that you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's why the pursuit and the search of the one will be unending, because there's no such one. There's only two people who make a deliberate choice to be with each other and to improve upon themselves because of their love for each other or because of their desire to be with each other. So I think that that is the precursor for finding a one. Now, what I see happening in our culture, and I see this because I have friends and I have family and I have people that I talk to, people that I see again on social media that I can refer to, is that people, from my observation, based on whatever is going on, here and here, society seems to be at a place where finding love, finding the one, finding a one is becoming somehow incredibly difficult. People are getting older than in the past without having settled down, without having found a spouse or a significant other. And and the question is why? Why are people struggling to find love at the same time that love has become a mega industry, right? We have shows like Love Island, Love is Blind, Married at First Sight, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. I mean, literally countless shows, if you were to count all of the shows dedicated to finding love around the world. There are countless shows, dedicated to the enterprise of love. There are countless dating apps at this point dedicated to the enterprise of love. Yet, the singledom, the kingdom of singleness is very ripe. It is, brimming. It is very full. There are a lot of people out here who seemingly cannot find love and are going, into their 30s and going into their 40s and perhaps even 50, and they've still not found love. And given all of the analysis that it's taken us to get to this question, I think my answer is obvious. I believe that we are struggling in this department because we are lost in idealisms that do not actually map to the reality of relationship. Um, you find men that, you know, believe they have, so many options, right? Men are the ones who choose, so they say. When a man is ready to get married, he finds whatever it is he's looking for and he chooses. They seem to be the ones in a position of power, and perhaps because they're in a position of the power of choice, from that, angle, um when they go into the marketplace, especially nowadays where they're inundated with choices in real life. You walk into a Starbucks, you see women. You go on, Instagram, you see women. You go on, Tinder, you go on, what are the other, Hinge, all of those places, you see women. And so they're inundated, it seems, with choices. And so they believe that, um, they have, you know, a whole host of women to pick from. And then I believe, and I would love to have a conversation with a man about this, please invite yourself. Um, but so they seem to be also taking an inordinate amount of time to actually make a choice. I'm seeing men who are well accomplished, career men, very successful, who are in their mid 30s, who are in their 40s, who are in their mid 40s, who are even in their 50s, still not settled down, still not having made a choice. But nonetheless, mingling with lots of women, having whatever's questionable relationships with lots of women, not settling down, not making a choice because they seem to feel that their marketplace is for their picking. So I think there's that side of it. And there's also the side of very incongruent things that I believe a lot of men are looking for. And I want to delve, into that another time. These incongruencies, such as, wanting a very feminine woman, but you're not doing anything to make her be in her feminine essence. So where is the femininity going to come from when you're you're creating struggling women? We're going to talk about that another time. So I see a lot of incongruency in what men are looking for. So you want, a highly intellectual woman, a very smart woman, to raise your children, to be able to educate your children well, or whatever that is. But at the same time, you don't want her to be really empowered. You don't want her to have a voice. You don't want her to essentially, be, equal with you, so to speak, intellectually, even though you want her faculties to be at that level. But you somehow maybe want to suppress her. So these are realities that I see, and so it makes it also impossible, therefore, for these men to therefore find what they're looking for, because they're looking for things that perhaps don't exist, especially not in this day and age, unless you go and find, that somewhere where I don't know. So there's that. And then on the side of the women, I think that, and I don't blame women for this necessarily. I think that, like, we've observed a lot of, you know, life life altering, mind altering, soul altering, relationships growing up, right, which were not necessarily the best. And especially, let's say, between in our societies, between our parents, people have a lot of examples that they don't want to repeat in their lives. People have been traumatized by just different things, growing up, or people don't, again, want to repeat the same cycles over and over again. So there's this notion of, maybe ending generational curses, ending cycles of abuse, just there's just a whole, slew of things that I feel are operating, especially within the minds of women. And I think that that is all very credible, and that's all very important, that we go into picking our person, um, with bright eyes, right? And a very well set engineered mind, so as not to repeat certain mistakes and go through certain patterns that we've observed our aunties, our moms, our sisters, all of these people going through. So that's also valid. But again, what I think it has created is, you know, women who have a very perhaps long list of what it is that they're looking for, and an ideal man that unfortunately in a lot of cases probably doesn't exist, right? And again, coupled with the fact that somehow through the lens of social media, we always seem to find people who are presenting themselves or projecting their relationships or projecting the men in their lives as men that look like people who tick those boxes, even though when you peel back the layers. For example, many years ago there was a couple, an interracial couple that a lot of people admired. I'm not going to name their names, but I think, we can all probably think about who that was. And we idealized their relationship. We thought that he was the perfect man. And at some point, things came crumbling down. So we're dealing with obviously not wanting to repeat negative cycles. And we're also dealing with things that are being projected to us that make us feel as though we can continue to wait and to wait and to wait and to search and to search and to search, because there is this man out there who's going to tick all of those boxes. And that as well is not the right approach. So much, so much. It's honestly, it feels really depressing to, like, bring us to this degree of reality. Having said all of that, where do we find ourselves now? The question is, how long should you wait for the one? If you've made it this far, I believe that the answer should be jumping straight at you from everything that I've said. It is obvious, it's somehow simple, but certainly in practice, not so simple. You shouldn't spend your whole life waiting for the one, because the one doesn't exist. A one exists. A one who you can make out of deliberate choice, who you can make out of a pragmatic mindset, who you can make out of obviously an understanding of yourself and the things that you need versus want, right? The things that you can compromise versus can't, and your own willingness to adapt and to change for and with another human being. I think that that's what it boils down to. And so I'm not an advocate of people, men or women, spending endless time looking for what doesn't exist. And my friends who know me, because I've had some measure of this conversation with certain people in my life, would know that, you know, I am a huge advocate for everyone reeling back, really asking yourself the core questions, and kind of re resetting the lens through which you go out into that marketplace, and a lens through which you pick whomever it is that you're looking for. Let me share a story with you. So, I have a big sister friend who is literally a decade older than me. And so, I remember at the time that I witnessed her make this decision and literally like put it into practice, I was just like, what in the world? Like, this is serious. I was 21 back then. And she had, I think, just turned 30. And when she turned 30, and I'm not saying anyone should do this, because every individual is unique, and the decisions that we make are ours and ours to own and ours to operationalize. And the consequences of those decisions are also ours to take on. So, don't just do what someone else did, but learn something from it. And I think it's about what I want to share here. It's about intentionality. And again, peeling back those layers and get into reality. So when she turned 30, she was adamant that she was not going to turn 31 without a husband. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. It is actually an inordinate amount of pressure, because that kind of pressure can lead to you certainly choosing the very wrong person for yourself. So I don't think I can operate with that degree of pressure. But watching her go from speaking that as a goal that she set for herself, and move into a reality where actually by 31 she was married, and 10 years later she is still married, and she has built a family with that person, and they have, a great relationship, and they have multiple kids, and everything is good. I really applaud her. I applaud her, like looking back at my younger self, who was like listening to her say that and not knowing where she was coming from, and not knowing what that sense of urgency was. I applaud her now as someone now in my early 30s, and understanding where she must have been mentally, and how she must have sat with herself to make that decision, and how she must have analyzed how she navigated her 20s, how she navigated dating life in her 20s, the people that she chose, the people that she didn't choose, the people whom she didn't even give a listening ear to. Because ladies, let's all be honest, there are people who have tried to talk to us who we have not even as much as turned our eyes towards, because there's a particular stage in life where you feel like, again, the world is your oyster, everything is yours. You also feel that same power that men feel for a longer period of time, the power of choice, right? You're in your youth, you're in sort of at the peak of your beauty. Everyone wants you, everyone is talking to you. I have done that. I remember, like, being outside of a club in DC, and like, actually fine man, fine Ethiopian man approach me, trying to talk to me, trying to get my number. Me, I was just like, number for what? Number for what? Story for another day. But I cannot, like, I cannot refute the fact that we have been in that place, right? Of rejection, of thinking that there's like something else out there that's even better, even better, and even better. And so being now, like, at a similar age to where she was, I can understand how she had to be radically honest with herself, and radically honest about her 20s, and also honest about what she wanted in her 30s and moving forward, and also coming to a place where she made a deliberate and conscious decision to approach her romantic life differently. I'm sure what that meant was that she certainly listened a lot more to people whom she would not have maybe even listened to before, or even given like literally the light of day to. Number one, it also meant that perhaps, if she was looking for a ready-made, man, a man who was already at the very peak of his career, the very peak of his success, she brought herself, down to a place where maybe she changed that towards, maybe I'm not going to find a man who's at the peak of his success. Maybe I'm not going to find, Bill Gates, Dangote, but I'm going to find a man who is building, and I'm going to build with him. And I'm going to accept that. Maybe that ideal life, that mansion life, that whatever life that I thought I would have, or I wanted to have by age 32, 33, it's not going to happen until 40. We're not going to be able to afford a $1 million property until 40, until 45, until whatever. Basically, like being realistic, right? And also bringing yourself to a place where you accept what the options are. Because I keep on throwing this term millionaire, billionaire out there. If anyone knows me, me, I'm still waiting for my one. My one is my Arab prince, those people that, Rihanna and Jenna Jackson done, those ones, those billionaires. I'm still waiting for them, because that is my one. Just come and bring me oil money. That's what I'm looking for. But where am I going to find them? like honestly, and I'm saying this jokingly, but I'm being very real because we all have these ones in quotes, but the ability to find them is almost is zero to nothing, right? Because you need to be in certain social spaces, in certain echelons of society. For example, on this particular question of, finding a very wealthy, a very opulent man, you need to be within certain very microscopic circles to even have access to such individuals, or you have to be willing to compromise your own self, your own integrity, and put yourself into spaces that will give you access to that in a way that might not align with your core values. There's also that. And there's also the fact that even if you find these men, there are things about them that will still not align perhaps with your core values, with your core desires in life. For example, whether it's their lifestyle, whether it's their unavailability, whether it's the fact that they're philanderers, whether it's this, whether it's that. And so I just bring us to that to say, these are the things we have to grapple with, and these are real things we have to grapple with, because there are even women out here who are looking for people who make six figures. But if we go into the data, how many people realistically in this America, in this world, in Europe, in Africa, in Australia, make six figures? Very, very little, realistically, right? Most people probably make 60K a year, 50K a year, 80K a year. And they build very good lives, very steady lives out of that. And so I think that we need to like literally like rewind the tape, probably erase the tape and completely reset like what our notions of these people are that we're looking for, and like what the reality is, and like how we can find a middle ground between those idealisms, reality, and like what we're willing to accept and what we're willing to compromise, and like what we're willing to make negotiables, right? Maybe some of our non-negotiables need to become negotiables, and some of our fantasies need to be completely thrown into the dustbin. So that's basically it for me. So a long story short, do not spend an inordinate amount of time looking for the one. Bring yourself to reality. Take a dose of reality, several doses if you need it, and really ask yourself, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you're willing to also give? What is it that you're willing to compromise? What is it that you're willing to sacrifice? How do you believe you can build a life worth living with another human being? And how do you think that you can contribute to that? And what do you need from the other person to contribute to that as well? Because it takes two people, as I said earlier, who are willing to accept and work through their imperfections and build what they aspire to together. So that is my long, long but short answer on finding the one. Don't waste your entire life finding the one. Literally put on your pragmatic hat, change the lens through which you're approaching this, and find your one, and let them also find you. And with all of that said, thank you. And I'll catch you on our next chat where we will be delving into something else. Thanks. Bye bye.